come to bill. Thanks, Ken.
Jack the Pringle, cool one with you.
I'd like to, just thank my colleagues in the Independence for Change for the support for this bill, and also thank the AAA PPP for their support as well. And I think they've all outlined in their contributions the necessity to have economic, social, cultural rights enshrined in our Constitution, and the fact that we should be, rather than debating it here in the House, we should be actually going out and debating it with citizens and the public. And as Deputy Brewin has outlined, I have certainly no doubt that it would be passed by an overwhelming majority. But maybe that's what Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are afraid of, is that it would be passed by an overwhelming majority, and it would actually make governments accountable for the decisions that they make. Because I think what has got through both parties' contributions to this debate tonight is that they don't want to be accountable. They don't want to be accountable for making decisions that destroy people's lives across the state. I think there's two kind of summaries that I could put on the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael stance, and I'm going to deal with both of them together because they're both really very similar anyway. The one is, leave your rights with us and we'll look after them. And I think we've seen how that has worked for people right across the state. And both ministers cited the fact that traveller ethnicity was recognised a couple of weeks ago here in the House, after 30 years of waiting. So that's something to be really proud of, that it took 30 years to get to that point where this House could actually recognise an ethnic minority's citizenship rights in the state. And then I think the other summary is, you can have your rights, but not just now. So you have to wait. So, I mean, you outline that you're going to progressively deal with these rights, but you can't have it in the Constitution. And the crux of the argument is that you say that it actually just will remove power from the Dáil here and hand it over to the courts. Well, obviously, that shows that you haven't actually read the Convention itself, because it actually states in the Convention that the principle of progressive realisation. Now, I'll explain what that means. That means that states are subject to resource constraints, so the Convention actually recognises that. And it also means then that states are expected to act as best as they can within the means available to them. So that further strengthens that. And that's a concept that's perfectly in accordance with constitutional obligations on ESC rights. And other countries right across the world have enshrined ESC rights. Portugal has them in their constitution, Latvia has them in their constitution, and the world hasn't stopped turning. The lights haven't gone off, everything hasn't collapsed. Those countries are still functioning democracies. The judges aren't around making laws and ruling their states and deciding on what taxation is going to be used for in those states. So this isn't rocket science. But what this is about accountability and about culture. It's about changing the culture that governments operate under, where they can bestow virtues on people and bestow things on them like tax cuts and everything else. And if we had these rights enshrined in our Constitution, perhaps the government would have been more restrained and given €2.5 billion away in tax breaks over the last couple of years, and could actually have used that money to deliver housing for people and deliver a healthcare system that people could actually be proud of and use to develop themselves. And those are the things that could have been done. And indeed, even if we had these rights enshrined in our Constitution, it could have actually made the last 8 or 9 years of austerity less burdensome on people, because the example is there of the Latvian government, who, when they were negotiating with international lenders, were able to use the fact that ESC rights were enshrined in their Constitution to actually ease the burden of the conditions that would be placed on them in relation to their bailout programmes. So that's what the ESC rights could have done for this government, rather than placing constraints on them and making it more difficult for them. And one of the most startling things is the right to housing, and the fact that we have, as Deputy Wallace outlined, thousands upon thousands of children and families living in hotels here, and we have hundreds of thousands of empty, unused houses right across this country, but yet this government won't act on those, because you insist on ensuring that banks are able to pump up and falsely build up their balance sheets so that they can be sold off at the best price, and you manufacture a crisis rather than actually dealing with the issues and the problems. And it's interesting when you look at it that in Scotland, where they have the right to housing enshrined in their legislation, it actually shows that the provision of housing is more cost effective than it is here, because they do have those rights. And that's the difference that it could make. And so, and just in conclusion, I didn't deal with the Labour Party, but sure, that's okay. There's no need to. I'd just like to thank the ESC Rights Initiative for their work on this, and it was a pleasure to work with them in relation to it, and especially Aidan Lloyd, who's in the gallery here this evening as well, and the work that they've done on it. And I would also like to thank Peter McVerry of the McVerry Trust and Bríd O'Reilly of the INOU as well, who attended a public launch in relation to this bill. And I'd say it's disappointing that the government wouldn't accept this, and that Fianna Fáil wanted to put it on the long finger and wait another 20 or 30 years for it to be realised. But it's not surprising, and that's the thing about it. But we'll keep going, and we'll keep pushing, and we will get there eventually. Thanks.
Now, an amendment was moved by the Labour Party, so the first question is that the amendment be made. Na chakta ata awawer and keshta abadis ta. It should have done a gunya.